Hello. Can you introduce yourself and tell me about a favorite vacation?
Hi, my name is Laura W. I want to talk to you about my vacation in Washington, D.C.
That's an interesting place to visit. Tell me about your trip.
2 years ago, my brother, my mom, myself all flew to Washington, D.C. to visit my aunt, my uncle, and our two cousins. At that point, when we arrived, it was really warm compared to where I was living on the West Coast. What happened was one night in Washington, D.C., it started to snow, and I was so surprised. It was the first time I'd ever seen snow in the East. I went to visit before, and something happened. I went to see Gallaudet actually, because I thought I wanted to go someday in the future. It was really nice.
How did you pick that place to go on vacation?
The reason I went to Washington, D.C. was because my mom had a conference, and she asked me and my brother to take that opportunity to just get to see Washington, D.C. It was lucky her conference was in a fancy hotel, so we stayed there all day. Very lucky.
What did you see while you were in Washington, D.C.?
After that, I visited the famous monument, the Smithsonian. It was really interesting. Something strange happened. I started to feel really dizzy in the monument, so we left and we decided to go back home. And it started to get worse and worse and worse, so we went to the doctor. The doctor said, "You're fine." But it got even worse, so we went back to the doctor. But then when we got home, I couldn't sleep that night. I was laying in bed, tossing and turning, and I was itching. I think I had a rash. We went back to the doctor, and the doctor thought that I had scarlet fever. But I had eaten a lot of chocolate at that point, so I might just have had an allergic
So,
reaction.
did that make you feel better?
Yeah, I did eat a lot of sweet food at that point. But nothing worked. So the next day, it got worse and worse still. My aunt decided to go to the hospital as a patient. I was all dizzy. And when we were driving in the car, another car got 1 inch away from us. But I couldn't hear at that point. So we get to the hospital. I entered the door and I just immediately threw up. The doctors looked at me and they're like, "Yeah, you're sick. It's bad." They didn't want to send me home, so we went back to the hotel for 2 days. All day I watched TV with my brother and just slept.
That's too bad that you were sick on your vacation.
It was really ironic. Why? Well, it was ironic because at that point I was supposed to go to the White House and I had an interpreter scheduled for a tour. And we had to call over and over and again, and finally they okayed it. But the day that I was supposed to go, I got sick and I couldn't even go.
Did you get to do anything fun while you were there?
When I was in DC, I met my mother's friend, Ruth. We celebrated her 2 kids' birthdays. One was younger and one was about my brother's age. My mom's friend and her were the same age growing up, so I've known each other a long time. They used to socialize when they were younger. It was fun.
Did you see any other museums or do much sightseeing while you were there?
When I visited different museums, I went to one specific one. It was the Holocaust Museum. It was really sad. They discussed how every day people had to live through these concentration camps. After that, I visited the Washington, D.C. Monument. Really windy that day. We couldn't enter because it was too windy at that time. I wanted to get in, but I just couldn't. We went to another museum. It was for Abraham Lincoln. And they had the statue with the L and the A in each hand. Were you sitting?
After your bad experience being sick, do you think you'd like to go back to Washington, D.C.?
I'm lucky. In April, I'm actually going back to Washington, D.C. for Camp Gaudet. Finally, I got that opportunity. I didn't think I was going to at that time when I was sick.
Did you see anything different the second time you were there?
Finally, I went and saw more of Gaudet's campus. And I saw a bunch of deaf kids out there. It was really amazing.
Tell me more about your experience at Gallaudet.
I met some other kids from Virginia, from New York, and I got to stay at Gaudet for one whole week in one of the dorm rooms. So in the future, when I go to Gaudet, I'll still stay in those same kind of dorm rooms.
Tell me about the camp you went to.
The camp I went to was really fun. There's a woman from Sweden who helped tutor all of us. It was a really neat experience.
Cool. Was she deaf?
Yeah, she was deaf.
Did you win any games or get any trophies?
I got a prize.
Do you think you'd like to go back again someday?
Yeah, someday, for sure, I'd like to go back. Sometime in
Thanks
the
for
future.
spending time with me today.